Welcome to the official podcast of DogsDaily.com, a Sports Illustrated channel.
Gets to the edge. Sonny Michel will send the Dogs home to the championship game.
If you're looking for the latest Georgia Bulldog news in football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting, then you're in the right place.
Anthony Edwards hit the jam. Are you kidding me?
Hosted by Dogs Daily writers Jeremiah Stoddard, Kyle Funderburk, and Jonathan Williams.
Here's a pitch. Hit high out into right center with some carry. It's got a chance. This ball is out of here. Tucker Bradley has won it.
Just sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for these hot takes you're about to listen to.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Classic City Sports. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard along with Jonathan Williams. An action-packed episode for you, as always, lately. Going to start out, we'll talk a little bit about the new basketball hire for Georgia. You know, Mike White coming on. We won't get too deep into that because we have a special episode coming up for that here in the near future. We'll get into that detail later in the show as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about the spring practice updates that are coming out. It's only been, a day into it. It feels like there's a lot of stuff that we've already seen start coming out, and all the extra stuff you're going to start seeing moving forward. It's going to be a lot to kind of digest as well. With Darnell going down, there's some stuff to talk about with all of that as well. Then you got to talk about Carson Beck has been in the news a lot this week on Twitter and everything like social media. For at least on our side of things, we've seen a lot of stuff about him, so we will talk about that. Plus some stuff developed on that today as well with the Georgia Pro Day. So that was kind of interesting to see. And then we'll cap everything off with the King of the Hill segment for us. And this week we're going to be talking about the best time for sports, the best month or a little 4-week stretch, roughly 4-week stretch for sports in general throughout the year. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and kick everything off and start off with, the Mike White hire. I know the initial reaction that both of us had was like, we weren't really sure how to digest it at first. It was like, it caught me off guard with who they ended up going to get. I know we kind of had our heart set on somebody specific with Jonas Hayes, which it's not over with that he could potentially end up in Athens as an assistant or something there as well, which could help develop his career as a head coach down the road. So, but what was your initial reaction? How do you kind of feel after you had a little bit of time to digest that information?
I think really it was just a bit of a shock because throughout most of the basketball season for Georgia, everybody was talking about these certain names that they were wanting to come to UGA as the next head coach. And then and Mike White was not one of those names that was being tossed around. Like we said, you had Jonas Hayes, Dennis Gates from Cleveland State, Forbes from Wake Forest, and a couple other guys were being thrown in there. And that seemed like those were going to be the guys probably that Georgia would go after. And then Mike White, kind of out of nowhere, was announced as the new head coach at UGA. And there was quite a bit of backlash when the hire came out. And I think a lot of it had to do with because Florida fans wanted him out of there for such a long time. They were not very pleased, but you also have to remember that he was a guy following Billy Donovan from Florida. And those are some tough shoes to fill. That's Billy Donovan had a really successful career at Florida, led him to the tournament a lot, and had a lot of success there. And Mike White necessarily did not do that. But I think it's a really solid hire for UGA. Kind of some mixed feelings. I'm being optimistic about it a good portion.
As you should be.
Because like I said, you don't want to just jump onto a hire and say, like, oh, this is a bad hire or like this is a really good hire before he's even on campus. The same thing happened with Tom Crean.
I was about to say. When
Tom Crean was hired, everybody thought it was the home run. This was going to be the guy that was going to take UGA to the next step. And it was just a downhill roller coaster from the very beginning. So
he's the guy that had that resume that made a lot of people believe that, right? Like a Final Four appearance with Marquette, a Sweet 16 appearance in Indiana. Like he had in recent success too, so it kind of led you to believe that. So after that, I'm kind of tempering expectations and stuff of people in general as well.
But I think the biggest thing for me was something that I took note of during they had this big welcome party in Stegman the other day for students and anybody else who wanted to attend. And the biggest thing he said was, we're going to really focus on recruiting all high schools in the state of Georgia, and specifically the areas around Athens. Guys like Fleming, who was down at Florida, who was from Athens, went to Cedar Shoals High School, and transferred, but did not choose UGA. Ended up choosing Florida, where Mike White was. And so I think that's a big thing. That's kind of what we've harped on for the most part. For who we wanted as a hire for UJ's basketball coach. And I think that's what you're going to get in Mike White. So really pleased. But like we said, we're not going to go in too much depth with this hire because we're actually planning on doing more in-depth discussion later on this week. If you want to say who.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into that a little bit. This Saturday is what we're planning to do it as of now. Sometime, we don't have the exact time ironed out just yet, but sometime after 4 p.m. on Saturday, we are planning to sit down, virtually sit down with JJ Frazier again on the show and kind of go over everything with him. We've had him on here a couple of times. It's always a lot of fun for us, so we're excited.
He doesn't hold back, so he's
doesn't
definitely
hold
someone
back.
you want to listen to when he comes on.
Yeah,
here.
he's going to tell you what you want to hear as a Georgia basketball fan. He's been very vocal about things on Twitter as well himself with everything that's been going on. He explained why he thought Jonas Hayes was a good candidate. Actually, we had a conversation with him about Jonas Hayes a year ago, more than a year ago, at this point, when we were all sitting here basically saying that it was time for Tom Crean to go out the door on, a year ago. But obviously buyout stuff played into that, I think, and he stuck around for one more year. So he's still been on the same train for it. He's, I think he still would love to see him at that, position. So we'll see what he thinks about the Mike White hire. I'm excited to learn his insight of it because he knows the program. He's still connected with a lot of people. He talks to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
He'll be able to give us some more insight of how that actually, is coming across through other players and other, the staffers, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with him. So we're excited for that. It'll be a special episode outside of our normal scheduled shows, but he's also in Italy, so it's a little hard to organize time.
Bit
with
of a
him.
time difference.
Yeah, a little bit of a time difference. So during the week is hard because if we were to record, I don't know the exact time difference, but if we were to record at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. on Wednesday with him, that's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that
Not
in
ideal.
his time. So not a great time for it, but we will get that episode. It'll be a special one on Saturday. If you can't watch it live with us, we'll post it on YouTube and everywhere else as well. So keep that in mind with us as well. But sorry, go ahead.
No, so that's basically all I had to say for basketball. Like we said, come back probably sometime around Saturday. We'll have the rest of that discussion posted for you guys or whatever. And like we said, great insight from JJ. But anyways, we'll jump right into spring football. And spring football got off to a hot start just off of day one. They started yesterday with spring practice. And news started piling up, starting off with Darnell Washington being out for the rest of spring as the headliner. And that got a lot of discussion rolling. And then, of course, that leads into other discussions about what could possibly be the future for position players, who's really competing for spots, and what does Darnell's injury mean for the football program? What does Darnell's injury mean for himself as well? And as usual, there are some hot takes flying around about that. And but what we really want to focus on is what Darnell's injury specifically means for the football program. And it's kind of like what happened when Darnell went down last season, right before the season started. It really opened up a big opportunity for Brock Bowers to get in the mix and really be a focal point of the offense. And with Brock Bowers being out for the spring as well, that's not going to be the case this time. But it is the case for Oscar Delp, who is a new enrollee at UGA, was part of this 2022 class. And he has the likes of a Brock Bowers as well. So with
Similar play style, yeah.
Yeah. So with him being now the center of attention really for spring practice at tight end, he's going to be getting a lot of reps, probably going to be hearing his name brought up a lot and all the intel or articles that you read coming out of spring practice. And then also there were Kirby Smart touched on that. Eric Gilbert's going to be getting a good look at tight end as well. He's officially back with the team. He's rolling with the guys, and they're kind of easing his way in, getting his feet wet again on the football field and kind of trying to roll things back, get himself back on track to where he was prior to being absent of football due to some issues, or not necessarily issues, just some stuff he had going on personally. So a lot of opportunity, as there, like we touched on with spring football. With spring football, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people, a lot of spots to be battling for, and a lot of the reps to be had. And that's going to be the case for Oscar Delp and Eric Gilbert, and even other guys down on the bottom of the depth chart as well. Not on the bottom, but guys behind Oscar Delp, Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington, to earn some playing time. Because like we said, there's got to be a guy that fills that John Fitzpatrick role and, be the dirty work. You got to grit and grind on the football field. So possibly some guys could find themselves in that role as well. So,
yeah, for sure. I think that was my first instinct, my first reaction and thought of what's going down with it. And I know a lot of people, the reason that Jonathan brought it up the way he did is, some of the comments being made about it. A lot of people instantly go, well, there goes Darnell Washington. He's out the door, that kind of thing. And they instantly throw him into the transfer portal because they don't see him playing at this point, which they all thought, or a lot of people felt, that this spring practice was going to be crucial for Darnell because it was his chance to get more involved. It's with Brock Bowers already being out. Same concept we're talking about for Oscar Delp. They were saying the same kind of thing for, Darnell, where Brock Bowers was going to be out. It was a great time for Georgia to just feed the ball to Darnell, let him feel very involved and feel like he comes out of the, spring practice saying, hey, you know what? I feel good about where I'm at and stuff like that. Now he doesn't get that spring practice. A lot of people have already come out and been like, well, I guess that means he's going to be gone. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. Georgia's staff will take very good care of him in this situation. They're going to have to they will. I do think they will have to try to sell him a different way on staying at Georgia and sticking around for it and everything like that, because I do think that they need to convince him a little bit on.
I think they've already sold him on that,
and I'll tell you why, because he hadn't left already.
Well,
he's still here.
I'll tell you why, because when it comes to injuries, you just saw George Pickens, who tore his ACL last spring, and he posted an incredible. He had an incredible combine,
4.47 speed.
He's been all the rave in regards to wide receiver position now. After that as well, Zamir White, after 2 ACL tears, came out and had a really strong NFL combine. His draft stock
flat, which surprised everybody
a good bit. So I think that's really, they've already sold him. Like, hey, you're injured. Look at our track record here. We will get you ready. We will get you in that position to be NFL ready when your time comes to make that decision. So no worries. This is the best place for you to be right now, because we can get you healed up before the season starts. Enough time for you to get put on some junior year tape, get a really good look at you and your new role, possibly kind of see some new things for yourself. So I think they've already sold them on that. That's like we said, they have their best pitch right now as a program in regards to what happened at the combine. And it even applies now to Darnell Washington as well.
Yeah, it does. I think that's a very valid point. They've proven that they can get him ready to go. And I think that we've talked about this before as well. I think Darnell is a great tight end in general. Like he does have some ball skills and he has a lot of that, but I think he is an underrated blocker as a tight end as well. The stuff that he can do, even in the national, I saw a clip actually last week about this as well on Twitter. Somebody posted, and it was a clip of him blocking one of the edge rushers from Alabama, Will Anderson. But there was another one I saw too where he had pinned the guy and just pushed away. But Will Anderson, he handled him with no problem, one-on-one blocks, which meant Georgia had confidence for him to go one-on-one against Will Anderson over there as well.
The best defensive player in all of college football.
Exactly. But there was that, and then there was another one. I don't remember who the edge rusher was, but it was on the other side. It wasn't Will Anderson, and he just pinned the guy up against the side and just opened up a huge running, zone for Zamir White, I think, as well. And stuff like that, it's going to translate into the NFL. He can do it now if he really focuses on it, which I think he's bought into it, because if he hadn't, you wouldn't see those big highlight type blocks from a guy like him if he hadn't bought into it like that. Now, I know he may not like doing it a ton because he wants to, and this is speculation. We're not talking to Darnell Washington directly, but there's a lot of speculation about he wants to be in the limelight like Brock Bowers is, because that's what he's, wants to have a career like. I think he's going to need to be focused more on the other side of the play. He can definitely make plays in the passing game and contribute that way, but there's a lot of value in the type of tight end that he actually is. And I think that's what he needs to be convinced of too. And maybe they spend a lot of time just talking to him about that. I'm like, look, here's why you should do this. Here's how much money you can still get in the NFL by doing this. And here's why we think that's the best route for you. And as long as they can make sure he's comfortable with that, he'll still be here after spring practice, which means he'll still be here, next year and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that was the craziest thing to me is when the Darnell Washington news broke, was tons of people were already on Twitter like, all right, well, there goes Darnell. He's not part of our team anymore. He's hitting the portal. Why? Why are we throwing kids in the portal? I mean, it's been something that me and you talk about all the time on the show because we don't do it. I don't think anybody should do it. I think it's just a horrible thing because this is what really irritates me about this subject is that everybody harps on the players that stick around. They wait their turn. Everybody wants a player to people say, what happened to the players that stick around for 3 years and they wait their turn and they're patient and but now we have people that just hit the portal. But these same people are going on Twitter and are putting the kid in the portal before he even goes in there.
And before he thinks about going there potentially.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's people being hypocrites is what it is, because you're saying that you don't want these players to quit and you want them to wait their turn, or you want them to do their job and do what they're really good at and really buy in, which is what these players are displaying on the football field, not just Darnell, but multiple people. But then people are like, oh, well, he's already gone. When that hasn't even been really like anything. Anytime you've talked to Darnell, actually in the past, he's been on video saying like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm at UGA. This is where I want to be. Yet people are just like, no, he's gone. Like as if they know him personally, as if they've had discussions with him, as if they know what's going on in Darnell's head. And
That's
like,
my favorite thing, man. Everyone acts like they know these people personally when they start coming out here with these like declarations of like as if they're facts. And they'll sit there and say, no, he's for sure gone. What makes you say that? The same thing goes into other discussions, which we'll get into a little bit of like quarterback stuff too, is like, this guy's definitely better than this guy.
Apparently Carson Beck's been in the portal for 2 years without us even knowing, without him even putting his name in there. He's been in the portal for 2 years
Since the
now.
UAB game.
Goodness gracious,
he's been in the portal.
Man. It's crazy. I really just don't understand it. I really don't. I think it's just asinine comments, and there's just no need for it. Like, it should just be plain and simple. A guy is not in the portal until he officially puts his name into the portal, and there should be no other discussion about it until then. I think that should be the bottom line of that type of discussion.
I mean, it is the bottom line of that discussion, and we model a lot of what we do after, our fellow, Bulldog, sports talk kind of thing after Brooks, and because we follow him a lot and we write with him and different things like that. So we kind of do a lot of the stuff the same way he does. And that's one of the things I really like about what he does over there on his Patreon and everything is he might tell you stuff about players, and comments being made by players or other things like that, but he won't discuss like this player transferring unless that player goes into the transfer portal. And I think that's the way that everybody should do it, because why would you want to sit here and just throw players into the transfer portal when they aren't there themselves? There's plenty of other stuff that in the media you can talk about and do on your stuff like this without sitting here and putting a kid in the transfer portal, because guess what? Social media is huge. These things are public, for ours isn't, big like that, but like stuff like his show, right? A lot of football players on the team, a lot of recruits, that follow him and get involved with his stuff, see that stuff all the time. And so if he were to be on there just throwing kids in the portal and doing all this stuff, and then come to find out this kid's not transferring, he's not doing anything, it's going to look bad. And it does look bad for some media members out there that I think we've seen plenty of, and it's just not the right way to go about it. So I hate watching other people throw players into the transfer portal as well.
And it's like, they're like, oh, these players are quitters. Nobody wants to battle it out anymore. Everybody just wants to jump ship when times get tough. When they're the ones quitting on the kid before they even do, or even have any thoughts about doing so. So really, those people are the ones that are being quitters and giving up before things even get started. Like, people are saying Carson Beck is going to go in the portal, and they're basing his trajectory at UGA off of one throw against UAB. Well, you said he had 28 career attempts? 23 career attempts, and people are already saying, well, he's not cut out to be the starter. He has to go somewhere else because he's not starting here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the play that they're talking about, the pick six against UAB, was a poorly ran route by a running back that he drifted back instead of going underneath like he's supposed to, which led to the defender getting below him, which led to a pick six. So it's not even 100% on Carson Beck for the interception, but that's the play that most people will reference when they talk about it, because they're like, oh, it's UAB, and he threw a pick six against UAB. When he plays, the 23 pass attempts that he has had, and I guess this is our segue into the quarterback and Carson Beck situation.
Oh, yeah, we've already
gone straight into
this
it.
discussion.
But those 23 pass attempts have all been garbage time snaps against Charleston Southern, UAB, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech, I think maybe. I think that might have been the last one. But there was like 4 different teams that he had some pass attempts against this year. And he's playing with second, third string guys when he's out there. He's not playing with starters. He's not being, he's not even getting work with the starters in practice and stuff like that. So it's not a fair evaluation point to sit here and go, all right, let's look at these 23 throws in garbage time, which if you pay attention to any actual like football evaluator, talent evaluator, scouts type stuff, they don't watch garbage time football and judge kids in any aspect of it on their time in garbage time play, whether or not they're young freshmen or not, or if they're, seniors playing in those situations. It doesn't matter, because that isn't going to be a true judgment of their actual abilities in those settings.
Well, then it gets even better, because a video is posted of Carson Beck on Twitter of him working on his craft in the lab, getting some work in, working on his timing, or anything that would have in regards to quarterback play. Like outside of spring practice and outside of UJ, he is putting in work himself, putting in his own extra time to get better as a football player. And you still have people criticizing him. And it's like, what would you want a player to do in order to gain playing time? You would want him to put in the work and the effort, like the 10,000 hour rule. You got to put 10,000 hours into something that you love or something that you want in order to achieve that goal. So that's kind of, it seems like, what the mindset that Carson Beck has is he wants to work, he wants to earn his right as a starter, and he wants to get to that point, and that's what he appears to be doing. But then people are criticizing him for putting in the extra work. It's like, oh, well, do it in a game. It's just he's doing it on air. It means nothing, blah, blah, blah.
Against SEC defenders or these 300-pound linemen running at him and
what do you
things
want?
like that.
What more do you want from the man? He's trying his best.
And he's showing you that he's still committed. That goes back to, let's segue that back to like the transfer portal talk of it. He is, like you said, he is a guy that has been talked about being in the transfer portal for 2 freaking years because everyone just assumed that once Brock Vandagriff got there that he was going to be the next guy up. He just all of a sudden hurdled, as a true freshman, everybody already wrote him in as the next starting quarterback over Beck because that's just what is the new shiny toy coming in that everyone wants to play with, right? Well, Brock is a great quarterback.
I believe Brooks used the analogy of it's that brand new PS5.
Did he?
But everybody forgets about the PS2. It was reliable and it was always a great console, but everybody wants that brand new PS5 because, boy, it comes in a shiny box and it's brand new. And it comes with a great price tag on it, or not necessarily a great price tag, but it's a pricey thing and everybody wants one. But everybody forgets about that PS2 console. It's been around for a while, and it's been reliable, and it's hanging around. So I think that's the analogy that Brooks has used in the past. I think it's a great one.
It is a great one because it's true, and that's just how everything is. It's the next man. Everyone wants that next guy at quarterback position. Other positions, you don't see that kind of mindset when it comes to wide receivers or running backs and stuff. You're like, all right, this guy, especially at Georgia with the running back situation, they recruit highly ranked guys every single year. They get all these guys in, come in, and you don't see them going, all right, well, this guy just instantly jumps to the starter that's been there for a few years and worked and put their time in and earned the opportunity to be the next guy at UGA. They don't sit there and throw Branson Robinson's not being talked about as like instantly taking snaps away from Kendall Milton and Kenny McIntosh and all those guys this year instantly. Yeah, he'll probably play a little bit and you'll probably get to see him, but you don't see everybody saying, all right, well, there goes Kendall Milton. He's gone because of that, which I guess technically you did see some speculation of Kendall Milton transferring this off season. And then his dad, Chris, absolutely shot all that down. And it was really fun to watch that on Twitter as well.
Hold back.
No, I love Chris Milton on Twitter. It's funny because he sits there and he talks to these fans that do this kind of thing. And it was being done to his son. That's like people were sitting here throwing his son in the transfer portal after the season for whatever reason. I don't know why they thought that. I mean, as if he's not the next guy up right now either. That's what doesn't make sense about that one. He's literally running back number 1 right now in my head. Like him and Kenny are going to be the 2 guys. So the fact that he was thrown into the transfer portal by fans, it just was baffling for me.
Well, it's going to be a never-ending conversation because it goes all the way back to Jacob Eason because Jacob Eason was the guy that came in. Everybody wanted to see him, and you did get to see him. And then it was Justin Fields came in, and everybody was wanting to see Justin Fields, and everybody was saying how he needs to be the next guy. And then you have Carson Beck rolls in. Everybody wants to see Carson Beck. Then it's JT Daniels. Everybody wants to see JT Daniels.
Dwan Mathis was there for a little while.
Yeah, Dwan Mathis. And now it's Gunnar Stockton, of course. People are saying Gunnar Stockton is going to be a guy that's going to force everybody out, and Brock Vandagriff's going to transfer, or whoever else. It's going to be a never-ending conversation because, like you said, Georgia is really successful at recruiting, and they've been really successful at recruiting quarterbacks.
They really have.
And so, what do you think is going to happen if Arch Manning comes to UGA? Just go ahead and prepare yourself if that happens.
You know how mad some of the Georgia fans are going to be when Arch Manning. It doesn't matter if it's Carson Beck or Brock Vandagriff or whoever the next quarterback actually ends up being. Whoever it is, unless he is like throwing 5,000 yards, like 4,500 yards like Bryce Young out here winning a Heisman, everyone's going to be like, well, let's see what this Arch Manning kid can do. It's a bloodline thing. These true freshmen aren't going to walk in the door and take the starting quarterback job at Georgia like that unless unforeseen circumstances take place, which is what led to some of those type of things in the past with Kirby Smart. These systems, especially with Todd Monken, it's complex, man. There's a lot to learn. One of the things that we've heard about, Brock coming in is he needed to absorb a lot of the playbook and stuff last year. That was a big thing for him. And it took him, it's very complex. There's a lot to learn in this system. word is now that he's comfortable with the playbook at this point. Like he's gotten to where he's feeling good about it. Now he's got to be able to translate it over. So you got to give guys time to develop in the systems and really get acclimated to college football. That's the other thing about, thinking about Brock is he played at Prince Avenue. It's a smaller Christian school. It's a lower division level and stuff, but I think he's still extremely talented and he deserves to be the 5-star quarterback that he's recruited as. And he deserves all of the stuff that comes with that. But you still got to give him a little bit of a transition period into college. So you can't instantly throw him over other people. And Carson Beck probably needed some of that same stuff. And guess what? Now he's been in the system for a few years. And this discussion, the best part about this whole discussion, right, with everyone writing off Carson Beck right away, right, like this, neither of those guys are going to start this year or probably play much this year at all. I mean, Stetson's going to be your starting quarterback. Sorry if that bothers you, but just get used to it because he is going to be your starting quarterback, at least early in the season, unless some stuff happens there. He's your guy because he just took you to a national championship title. Like, you won it. Not even just getting there. You won it with him. And so he showed them that he had the confidence and ability to bring that to the program. He's not getting benched, especially not to start the season. So the conversation about Carson Beck is literally about the backup quarterback position. It's literally who's going to be QB number 2. And it's not even going to be answered this year. Like, it'll be answered for the season, sure. But the question, like, you'll go through that this year. And then next year, if both of those quarterbacks are still here, which, I'm not putting somebody in the transfer portal. I don't know. I'm not predicting what's going to happen. We're going to act as if they are. Then you have the actual quarterback battle for who's going to be your starting quarterback next year. Then you have that during that offseason, during that spring camp, during that fall camp. That's when you have the actual battle of who's going to be the starter. So to sit here and throw a kid out of the conversation before they even get to where the actual battle is, because this isn't that battle yet. Even if Carson Beck wins the battle this season, even if Brock Vandagriff wins the battle this season, the battle's not over because next year is when it really matters.
Yep. Oh, like I've said, just be ready for G-Day. It'll be fun because we've got a ton of quarterbacks in the room right now. A lot of them are taking next steps in the springtime. They're developing. They're getting better. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them kind of duel it out and just really put all their talent onto the football field. And all 4 of them. I mean, there's a lot of reps to be had, a lot of balls to be thrown. So it'll be really exciting to watch. But we'll finally hop off the soapbox on that one. Now that we've told you to get off our lawn and we've told you to get on out of here, we're going to take a step down off of that soapbox and we'll kind of dial it back in a little bit and just kind of focus on spring football. But so let's discuss a little bit about Eric Gilbert and then also wide receiver position because there's kind of probably some guys that are a little forgotten. I wouldn't say that people have completely forgotten about them, but guys like Dominique Blaylock are getting back into the mix. And so let's kind of transition to that a little bit. Yeah. How the wide receiver position is shaping up, and really any position as well, because I believe defensive line was kind of talked about with Kirby Smart today, and some other positions of who's going to fill the shoes of Jordan Davis and whatever else. So what are you thinking about that? What are you looking for, or what is the trajectory looking at for you?
Well, when you we'll start with Eric Gilbert, right? Because that's a big conversation point as well, since he's back with the team and he's been working out. Georgia officially released something putting him as a wide receiver on the website and stuff and put him as number 14. So he's on the roster officially now. I know we were talking before the show, and Kirby had mentioned that he's going to be working with tight ends, especially at least going into the spring right now. So they did list him as a wide receiver originally, but he is going to be a tight end in spring camp at least, especially with everything that's going on right now. So that'll be something fun to watch. So to see how that develops with Darnell Washington being out and Brock Bowers being out, it's going to give you a really good chance to see what Eric Gilbert is going to put together now that he's back on the field. And yeah, he's probably going to need a little bit of like an adjustment period. So I don't think you should go into it thinking he's going to be this insane guy from day one. I think that he's one that you got to let him get acclimated again, because he's been out of football for, almost a year or however long it's actually been now. So you got to give him a little bit of time to adjust back to that.
Absolutely.
That's going to be something that I'm really watching and I'm excited to see, because this is a guy that we've talked about for, since last summer, right? This is a guy that we've been excited to see in a Georgia uniform for a long time, and we're finally going to get that opportunity to see it. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do at tight end right now, but also like you and I have always talked about on this show and other times as well, he's not going to be your traditional tight end either. He is going to be another guy that's a lot like Brock Bowers, that, you'll see him line up in different places and stuff. So yeah, calling him a wide receiver isn't inaccurate either, because There's a reason they originally put him as a wide receiver on there. I believe he was even recruited to come to Georgia as a wide receiver when he was transferring as well. That was kind of like the thought of it when Pickens went down last spring and everything like that, right? Like that was where that mindset was. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out in the long term. But when you transition to the actual wide receiver position, a comment by George Pickens today, which going back just for 2 seconds on like the quarterback discussion part, George Pickens got to decide what quarterback he wanted to throw to him at Georgia's pro day today. He picked Carson Beck just for the ones that think Carson Beck's really bad. He wanted Carson Beck to throw to him on the most important day, leading up to the draft form at this point, outside of the combine, you don't decide who throws, or the combine, you don't decide who throws to you in on-field drills and stuff. But at your pro day, you can pick who your quarterback is in those situations. And he wanted Carson Beck to throw to him because he said, and I quote, "That kid can rip it," and like he just has it. Like he's good. Like, I mean, he is. And so that just forgot to make that comment a second
Change
ago.
the definition of 2 seconds for me. I'm just kidding.
Listen, you changed the subject before I was quite ready a minute ago, so I had to go back a little bit on that. But
I thought we beat that drum hard enough for a while.
Not quite, because there was a comment that
we
needed
got a
to
lot
be
of
made.
content to roll through, man. We got to keep the people interested. We can't be.
That's an interesting comment, okay?
Yeah.
That is an important detail of the discussion.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
first of
I've
all,
always got to take some shots at you. I can't just let you sit up here on your little throne.
Anyway,
look all pretty. You got to knock you down a few notches every now and then.
You just hate that I look a little taller than you on camera in here for some reason.
We won't talk about that. Do you want to stand up and we can really show the people up?
Back to the actual scheduled program here. So going back to other things that Pickens said today, he was asked about like the next wide receiver at Georgia that has, like the George Pickens type feel, like the guy that's going to be, the next George Pickens, the next big thing at wide receiver at Georgia. And his answer shouldn't surprise anybody. It was A.D. Mitchell.
Didn't even hesitate either.
No, he didn't hesitate at all. And that's not surprising to me, nor you or anybody else that watched this last season, because A.D. Mitchell absolutely showed out. You started hearing his name like crazy spring ball last year with Pickens out and everything like that. That was a name that you heard all the way through. And it was such a surprise to see him come on last year. And this is real because I personally talked to him on this. Darnell Washington told me he didn't know who A.D. Mitchell was at practice at first. I'm not kidding. That's a real story because I met him and I talked to him about it. And he was telling me about it. He said they call him A.D. And then he wasn't sure who it was. So he came out of nowhere.
That's got to be so funny because you got to think there's 80 plus people actually on the roster when you include walk-ons and stuff. So I've always wondered about that. Like, you're on the field with someone, you're lining up, and they make a big play, and you're like, "Oh man, what nice catch, bro!" And you're like, "I don't know your name though. I have no idea who you are, but man,
I'm focused on their performance.
I really like you though, and I hope I learn your name eventually because it's got to be so hard to know everybody's name. But that's so funny to me that like
he knew his jersey number, and he said they call him AD, which at the time we knew him as Adonai Mitchell is all we had seen, so I didn't know he was called AD either. So I had to I was like, AD, number 5. I was like, oh, it has to be like Mitchell. It has to be Mitchell. Like number 5. I was like, yeah, that's Mitchell. And it was funny because it just to hear that story of it. But anyways, my point of it is he caught you off guard last year. A lot of people off guard last year as a true freshman coming in. But now it's not surprising. Every single person that watches Georgia football at all, anyone that watched the national championship game knows his name at this point because he has made a name for himself. It didn't surprise me at all when George Pickens said that today. Not at all.
No, absolutely. But it should almost surprise people because he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. Not many people knew who he was coming out of high school, but Kirby Smart and Todd Monken made sure to get their hands on him, and I'm glad they did. And I'm sure they're glad they did because he was a huge contributor, especially in the last part of the season, especially in the national championship, of course. But yeah, I mean, Eric Gilbert last year was the headliner of the entire offseason, really. I mean, even though you had Darian Kendrick added onto the team, you had Tyke Smith added onto the team, Eric Gilbert was all the rave because of the type of prospect that he was coming out of high school, what he did at LSU. And Georgia finally had that type of player on the roster. And that was before.
And they needed somebody to step up because they were talking about him helping take – we talked about him taking –
that was before what people knew Brock Bowers was going to do in the season as well. That's kind of what people probably expected Eric Gilbert to do last season was what Brock Bowers was exactly.
Yeah.
But Kirby Smart and them have really stockpiled up on the wide receiver, and we got a lot of names in there, a lot of really good players. Marcus Rasimi-Jack Saint is a guy that probably expected to take that next step in his career. He's been around for a couple of years. It's his
Blaylock.
time.
You got to see Blaylock.
Dominic Blaylock is finally back. I know he's been itching to get back on the field. His name's kind of been thrown around out there in the spring practice mix already after one day. A.D. Mitchell, especially Kyrus Jackson coming back. He's really a staple of that wide receiver room at this point. He's kind of had to deal with
Mr. Reliable.
He is. He always is. That's kind of what Stetson Bennett claimed him as when he first came on into his starting role at UGA in 2020. It seemed like him and Kyrus Jackson were just on the same page at all times. So
any third down in medium to long, it was 90% of those he was throwing to Kyrus Jackson last year in 2020.
Those guys are always great to have in your wide receiver room. It's really interesting to see how that's going to shape up in this room because, again, you got so many guys to feed and a lot of really talented guys and a lot of guys that are still early on in the developmental stage. Like guys are going to get better. A.D. Mitchell, as good as he is already, he had some slip-ups as well last season, as he should as a freshman. Had some moments where he dropped a few passes, maybe didn't run the right route. So looking to see him be more consistent and really kind of see how he does in his new role or what we're expecting his new role to be come this fall. But yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff to talk about. And then even on offensive line, you're kind of figuring those things out because Tate Ratledge is not able to participate this spring either. He was your starting right guard going into Clemson. So you're kind of getting some looks there. You assume he will probably be, maybe not at the very beginning of the season because like this injury takes a long time to heal up from and get yourself back from. So he may not be your starter at the beginning of the season. You kind of maybe want to like creep him back into the starting lineup. So you got to find out who maybe your right guard is going to be, tossing people around really in the interior because you really have to imagine that your left tackle and right tackle are probably pretty solid right now in regards to who you have.
Who I guess it's possible, but somebody's going to have to really outperform Warren McClendon or Broderick Jones, especially after Broderick Jones stepped up in the national championship.
Both of them played really solid last year.
Exactly. So I think you're right about both of those positions. I think SVP at center has got to be a lock at this point too, but from his performance as well, I don't know that it's going to take a incredible performance by somebody to take any of those three spots. You've seen Owen Condon hit the transfer portal officially this week as well, so that's one less name that we talked about when we talked about spring practice stuff a little bit last week. That was a name that I threw out as a guy that you got to watch for in different positions. So at this point, he may have seen that he's exhausted. As Brooks Austin would say, he's exhausted all possible outcomes and scenarios and options for himself. And now he's entered his name into it. He's been there for a little while. I think he's transferring as a grad transfer, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's been.
So he's been here for a while, right? So like at this point, he's going because he's got a little bit of time left to make that name, to try to do something with his career. And so you can't fault a guy like that for making that decision.
Plus, I think there's 86 scholarship players on UJ's roster right now, and I think they have to get down to 80. I think that's the right number. I may be what I do know
is it 85?
Okay, 85, but they're at 91. I think is what it is.
I think they're
six over the limit, so you got to get down to that number. And so you're going to see more of that. You're going to see some guys at the portal. Just kind of expect that. You can just do that by purely looking at the numbers that they have on roster. That's not inside information by any means.
That's just counting roster numbers.
That's just counting numbers and doing basic mathematics, doing addition and subtraction. So kind of expect that. Be aware of that. Don't panic when those names start hitting the portal. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have football back in action, of course. It's great to have that discussion back on the podcast. Enough of the, speculation of what we think is going to happen in spring. It is here. We're basically going to be talking about what is happening in spring.
Isn't it great? Football's back. Even if
great.
It's just spring football's back. There's real stuff to talk about again.
Had all that time to celebrate the Natty, and it's already here. I mean, it feels like the season just ended. You're still on that
I'm
high.
still soaking it in.
I know, but
you got to.
This season, 2022 season, is already here, and it's already getting back in action.
Absolutely.
But we're excited about that because we get to talk about football. We get to bring you guys information, bring our opinions, whether you care about them or not. We're going to be talking about them regardless.
At least for the next couple weeks.
We're going to be bringing them to you. But speaking of opinions, we're going to transition
Here
into our King of the Hill topic this week, as we've been doing for the past couple weeks. Our not even new segment anymore. I mean, it's pretty
weeks in.
It's
a
staple of this show. I would say it's here to stay. If you ask me,
it's staying. Yeah.
It always brings great discussion. I think this week's topic is going to bring some great discussion and a little bit of disagreement. We always talk about how we want some disagreement. We want me and Jeremiah to be at each other's throats, man. We don't want to hear all this. Oh, I agree with you. That's a great take, Jeremiah. I agree with you 100%. I want to be like, you are wrong, and I'll tell you why. And so I think that's what we're going to get a little bit of in this week's King of the Hill topic, which Jeremiah teased a little bit.
And Dean, I'm glad you stick around for the rest of the stuff just to watch King of the Hill.
Yeah, if you don't watch us to hear our football takes, you at least got to stick around for King of the Hill.
Even if this is the only reason that you stick around, you stay around for the whole show. I don't know, unless you dipped for a little bit. You were here at the beginning, so
that's all right.
If you dipped and came back, we still appreciate you coming back.
But
yeah,
so
go ahead.
King of the Hill topic. Jeremiah already kind of introduced it at the beginning of the show. But if you're just now tuning in, it is the best 4-week stretch in the sports world at any point in the year. The best time of the year for the sports world, 4-week stretch. So what do you got, Jeremiah?
All right. So I know your answer already because I already knew it when you first brought me the topic. I already knew what your answer was.
And I picked this topic because I had a feeling I knew yours. And I was like, ooh.
Well, because we'll get into why in a second of why I knew what it was going to be. But my 4-week stretch, you got to go about mid-October to mid-November, right? You get World Series and a playoff baseball, which I guess that's probably my biggest thing is because baseball is my bigger sport out of the other sports outside of football that we talk about. So I absolutely love that time of year. It's nothing better in baseball than like that playoff baseball scenario. It's so much fun to watch. You still have the NBA, you have college football, you have the NFL, you have college basketball during that stretch of time as well. The only thing you really don't have is your golf, and you don't have college baseball. You have everything else. You have, like, in college football, how can you go wrong with a time of year where college football is being played and your national championship Georgia Bulldogs are on the field? You're going to pick a time that's not that stretch of time?
Yes.
Then that's where we have a problem.
But I'll tell you exactly why. I don't have a problem with college football, obviously.
Oh, man. Dean, come on now.
And look, I know, yeah. See, look,
Dean?
my roommate knows exactly what's up. But I'll tell you why. I love college football, obviously. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm striving. I'm pursuing the career that I am, purely off of college football.
He's an Alabama fan.
Yeah, sure. I'm a closet Alabama fan. All right. Now we're just talking nonsense. All right. Goodness gracious. Didn't have to come after me like that. I am very offended at this moment. But my only issue is that you get college football 2 days of the week. I guess if you count those JV games that get played on Thursday. But you get
JV, Jesus.
Yeah. Looking at you, Georgia Tech, twice a year. But so you get Saturday, and that's it. Like you're riding the high all week for Saturday. And like I said, I love college football. Like I'm telling you, I don't get more excited for a lot of things than I do about college football. And then my only thing also with playoff baseball is that it's only exciting if your team is playing.
That's not true, man.
It is.
No, it is not.
You're telling me that you're watching every single game of an ALCS that you really don't care about if the Braves aren't in it, really, and you're excited about it. Like you're super excited about it.
Yeah, go back a couple years.
You're
I like
recency bias right now because the Braves just won the World Series.
I'm going to go back a little bit further too on it because like one of the best years to watch. I take teams like this, like the year the Cubs won the World Series. I was super excited to watch their playoff run and what they were able to do. Kansas City Royals when they did it. I like watching the team that is kind of coming out of nowhere in baseball. The same thing, I guess, in March Madness, like you like. But I like watching, and I find those teams that I can't stand watching the Yankees play, or teams like that, or the Dodgers. But outside of like teams like that, I like watching I like watching other teams and stuff in baseball as well. That's why your same answer is just for March.
I'll tell you why. It's late March, beginning of April.
No,
and it's 3 reasons. Opening day baseball, which everybody can be excited about because you've missed baseball. You've been wanting them to come back, especially this year. You've really been wanting baseball to come back, and it's finally here. Everybody gets excited about opening day because everybody's team is playing that week. 2, March Madness. I don't care if you have a dog in the fight or not. Everybody loves March Madness because you get to fill out a bracket. You pick someone to pull for. You love the upsets. You love the loyal Chicago teams every single year. You love the UMBC upsets every year. Everybody can get into and get excited for March Madness. And then, I don't care what anybody says, the Masters. I don't care if you like golf.
I like the Masters. I do like the Masters.
I don't care if you like golf or not. Everybody should go to the Augusta National Golf Course purely just off of the atmosphere and how it looks. It's a beautiful place. Everybody should go to it. But yeah, the Masters, I'm throwing that in there. One of my favorite sporting events of the entire year. Absolutely love it.
It's a good one.
So I take those 3 over just college football regular season play, playoff baseball, and then NBA, really NBA.
You ready for this?
Whatever.
You ready for this?
Drop your bomb. It's not going to matter. I said this. I literally said there's not many things I get more excited about in life than college football, but I'm talking about collectively. college football is great, but I'm talking about collectively a 4-week stretch of sports. Like this Friday, March Madness, you can watch college basketball from noon to midnight. That's how many, like, continuously.
But this is the thing. This is where we have, like, because you say, but I don't do that. Like, I pay attention to the scores and stuff like that. I fill out the bracket for the fun of it like that.
Okay.
Especially when you got a round of 64 teams, I'll watch it. Like, I watch some of the games, but like, there's your 1 versus 16 seed. They're rarely good games. Like, that kind of stuff, like, until it starts to get a little bit further in it, then I'll start watching all of the games. Like, once you get down, like, start whittling it down. So I'll fill a bracket out and I'll pay attention to scores and all that kind of stuff. I will fill out a bracket and do that. I didn't say I didn't do that.
It's madness, man. That's what's so great about it.
But I can't. But I don't sit there. I know you can sit there and watch all those, but I don't because I like basketball, but not at the same level that you do. So I do get excited about this time of year. For March Madness is fun to watch, but it doesn't outrank the fall for me in that time frame that I'm talking about. Where because it
does though, and I'm telling you, it's because of this factor that every single day from this point on until the mid-April, there's sporting events going on every single day, and a variety of them, and a lot of big things going on at the time. Regular season football is great. We love Saturdays in the fall time. Playoff baseball. And if the Braves are in it, love it. Absolutely love it. If they aren't, all right. I'll watch it. I'll watch a couple innings. Whatever.
This is our fundamental difference right here. Because
NBA regular season basketball. Are you really throwing that in there after you just said that, you really don't watch March Madness?
I didn't say. I was just using that as an example. I was using that as an example that you still have it for the people,
man.
For the people that matters too, that care about it. It's still there at that time of year.
For the people. You're talking about your opinion right now, all right?
And my opinion is the other stuff outranks March Madness because I care more about it. And the Braves have been, you can say recency biases all you want, but the Braves have been in like the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's
almost
great
every year
during that time. But as a collective, like when you're pairing it up against the March Madness or like opening day baseball, like I don't know, man, it's tough to pick that over. I'm telling you, it's end of March to mid-April. It's end of story. That's got to be it for me. As much as I love college football, Morgan, as I've claimed on here multiple times, it is absolutely end of March, beginning of April, or mid-April. There's nothing better. Nothing better.
Can we talk about? We've exhausted this a little bit too. But you want to talk about like the worst time of year? It's like the midsummer.
Oh gosh, man.
The only thing you do have is the NBA playoffs at that point, basically.
Yeah.
And then you have like mid-season baseball where
yeah.
It's just like the dog days of summer coming up, and like baseball is good.
It's that July part. It's July because
at that point basketball.
You and
over.
I, of course, we'll watch the Braves. Like I'll turn on a Braves game every single night at 7:00, and I'll watch majority of the games during that time period. Yeah. But college football has a dead period in that time. Really,
it's
not much,
super dead. At
not
that time.
much news going on unless it's injury, like a Jake Fromm breaking his hand in a skiing accident on the water. It's stuff like that, and it's just it's really when you hit that point in the year where like, man, September cannot get here quick enough.
That's when you really, really, really start to crave college football because everything else you do still have baseball, but as far as the powerhouse of like sports months or something, that's definitely got to be the lowest.
It's got to be the worst.
You don't really have much else, and so if you're talking for like a collective group kind of thing, not everybody does watch baseball like that. Like you and I will watch baseball at that time of year. A lot of people won't, so they'll just be like, "Well, sports are basically over right now."
Yeah. Like it's just a dead period all in all. So I'll agree with you on that one. That part of the year is definitely the worst part of the year for baseball, but you're not changing my mind for the best part of the year for sports. It's a no-brainer.
See, and I knew this was going to be the case when we went into it. He texted me about this time, like earlier today. He texted me about this, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to disagree on this." He said, "Yeah, I kind of figured that." I mean, he's the guy that grew up and he played basketball, and that was his sport. Yeah. He loves and he played. I never played basketball. I played it like pickup basketball and stuff like that. That was never my sport. I did play baseball. That's where like my passion was growing up. So like that's why I think the time of year, and opening day is at this time of year. But the other stuff, I put the weight of college football more than the NFL. The NFL is not near as exciting as college football, and every single week of college football means so much and everybody's team is playing like every week outside of your bye week. So you get that in every single game, at least the way it currently stands. Matters so much in college football. So I just get so excited even all week long. I know they aren't playing all week long, but all week long.
But I think that's the difference though, is that like you get one day during that part of the year. Whereas this week or this time of the year, you get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. It's all the time. Anytime you turn on ESPN or whatever else, there's a sporting event going on, and it has a lot of relevancy to it as well. It's high stakes, and it's just love it, man. I am so excited for March Madness to start tomorrow. My bracket will probably bust on the first day, but I'm completely fine with that.
I say this right, but I surprisingly have like a decent bracket most years, like at least like above average. I'm not like no one's
I got
perfect.
A story about this,
but like my bracket is always like an above. Watch it be terrible this year because I've got one in the Discord stuff.
Man.
Watch it be so bad this year. But last year in the Discord stuff, I think I came in second place on that one, off by one pick.
I didn't enter it this last year, but I did enter one for a UGA organization, which is RUF. Which I don't go to it anymore because Wednesdays it's on Wednesdays and I have a podcast. But so there's like 200 or like 150 people in this bracket pool last year, and there's it's supposed to get a gift card of your choice if you win. I won last year, never got my gift card, and I'm still salty about that. And now this year they changed it to you get a nice pat on the back if you win. But I never get I didn't say anything. I wasn't gonna be the guy.
I would have been that guy.
I wasn't gonna be that guy.
I definitely would have been that guy. Because that's tough, man.
I definitely still hold a grudge against that.
I
was the outright winner. Wasn't even given a shout out in the group me or anything. It was just like, oh, who's this guy? He won. Oh well, who cares? Whatever. He cheated or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
They straight shafted
Absolutely
you, man.
Ridiculous.
That's
man.
awful.
Yeah.
All right. So with this topic of March Madness, right? So I asked you briefly earlier, and to go in a little bit of detail of stuff to your sleeper teams to watch. For the people that are really, really big into it, which once again, I do a bracket and everything like that too at this time of year. It's fun for everybody can get involved with it, right? Who are your sleeper teams to make a decent run? Now, I'm not saying like your Final Four teams, but like just teams that might shock some people.
Oh, I've been telling Dean this one too because he's been asking me questions. South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. Great basketball name, great mascot. The Jackrabbits, they're pulling off the upset against Providence in the first round. Go ahead and put it in your bracket, but don't come after me if they don't. All right, we'll just keep that a little quiet on that end. But I'm telling you, they're a team to watch out for. But my sleeper teams should probably make a decent run into this year's bracket. I got Miami as one. They looked really strong in the ACC tournament. They got a really good guard play, a little undersized, so I can give you some concerns. But I think Miami's a team that could go deep. Virginia Tech looked really good in the ACC tournament. I really like their style of play. I think they're a team that they're hot right now, and they could continue to keep hot throughout the tournament. Michigan as an 11 seed, they're a really good team. They were really inconsistent during the season. They started out really high, but then they really went on a downward slope towards the end of the season. But as an 11 seed, I have them as someone you could really watch going deep into the bracket. Loyola Chicago, they're a team that's kind of proven that they can go on these type of runs. So that's one as well. And I think I had one more on my list, but I cannot remember it right now. But yeah, those are my teams right now. Those are my sleeper picks as of right now.
There you go. I won't give you mine because I can't give you mine. We already went over that. So I won't go into that. But there's a little bit of advice from the guy that follows basketball extremely in depth and loves it. As you can tell, it is his favorite time of year. So we'll give that to him. He can make that call there. But I think that's all I had for the show this week.
I took the dub today. I don't care what anybody says. I'm the king of the hill today. I think I took the cake on this one. I provided the analysis, the concrete evidence, and I rebutted everything you said. So I'm taking the dub today.
A rebuttal? No, like you said something back to everything I said, but it doesn't mean it was,
and it made sense
to you.
And the comments.
I would disagree with you on that one.
And the comments. Taking the dub. Anyways, so we'll go ahead and close out. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm taking the dub on this one. Anyways, so we'll go ahead and close out this episode. As always, got to give a shout out to what you guys can do to help out to us. Like the video on YouTube if you're over there. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Follow us on Twitter. Send us DMs of any of the topics you want discussed. Interact with our tweets as well. Like I said, we usually do a teaser for our King of the Hill topics. We didn't do one this week, but every other week we've done one as well. We get some great comments in there, get some people's takes on the subject before we come on here and talk about them. We're also on Facebook. If you're into that type of thing as well, you can like us on our page over there. We always post the live streams on there as well. You can watch them over there. We're all over the place. We got podcast platforms if you want to listen to us on your way to work. in the mornings, afternoons, whatever. We give you a good hour of your time as well, or just listen to King of the Hill like Dean does sometimes. We'll also take that. But nonetheless, help support us, help us grow. We're trying our best. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. And Jeremiah, you can do your closeout.
All right. And as always, keep it classy in the Classic City. We will catch you guys next week.
Welcome to the official podcast of DogsDaily.com, a Sports Illustrated channel.
Gets to the edge. Sonny Michel will send the Dogs home to the championship game.
If you're looking for the latest Georgia Bulldog news in football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting, then you're in the right place.
Anthony Edwards hit the jam. Are you kidding me?
Hosted by Dogs Daily writers Jeremiah Stoddard, Kyle Funderburk, and Jonathan Williams.
Here's a pitch. Hit high out into right center with some carry. It's got a chance. This ball is out of here. Tucker Bradley has won it.
Just sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for these hot takes you're about to listen to.